Hi YouTube friends, teachers, and homeschoolers. This is Elizabeth with an S, and today I wanted to show you an activity that you could do to introduce classification. So this is really dealing with more biological sciences, although classification is used in chemistry to sort different types of solutions and mixtures. Really, this does focus in on the biological science. So typically in a science class, you would introduce classification and talk about the different levels of classification and talk about phylum and orders and species levels and those sorts of things. But I think that's kind of a boring way to introduce the topic. And I think engaging the students first would really be ideal. So you can see here I have some little plastic animals. I actually purchased these from Oriental Trading, which is a sort of inexpensive online store that sells all kinds of nifty things. And they have all kinds of these little plastic creatures. Now, if you don't have the money to spend on Oriental Trading, that's fine. You can go to a dollar store and get a bag of plastic things. It doesn't have to be animals. You could get, different colored buttons or shapes, or for the homeschooling parent, you could use the kids' toy box. You could use different Legos. So there's different ideas that you could do out there. If you don't have a dollar store near you, there's always thrift stores where people are getting rid of used things, and often you will find in my local thrift store they have bags of like odds and end things that you could just buy and use to do a classification sorting activity with students. So first of all, for those of you who don't know what classification is, it is a way to sort organisms based on physical characteristics. So really, for example, you might say that it is more than a comparison. So if you consider two organisms like an orca and a bottlenose dolphin, they both live underwater. They both have to come to the surface to breathe. They have backbones, they have brains, fins, and teeth. And so they are pretty closely classified together. Now, you also might consider that an orca and a blue whale are alike as well. I mean, they're both called whales. We do have, people call orca whales. But if you look at the classification of those organisms, you will see that orcas have teeth and blue whales don't have teeth. So in fact, an orca and a dolphin, which also has teeth, are more closely related. In fact, whale is not a scientific classification. Whale is basically a sort of vernacular term that the layman would use to describe a certain type of organism. So here I have a bunch of my plastic creatures, and here they are. So I bought a huge bag, so I'd have enough. So I'm a teacher in a classroom, so I would basically give a pile like this to individual lab groups, maybe 3 or 4 students in a group. If you're a homeschooler, you could just give a pile of things to each of your children. And you don't have to tell them how to sort it, just tell them separate these organisms into 2 piles. Just start off easy. So maybe if your kid is into dinosaurs, or your students are into dinosaurs, they might put all the dinosaurs in one pile. I think that's all of them. And everything else goes into the other pile. And then ask them, how did you sort your organisms? And they'll say, this is the dinosaurs and these are the non-dinosaurs. And you can tell them, okay, mix it up, sort them into another 2 piles, but not the same type of separation that you did before. So don't do dinosaurs and non-dinosaurs. So then maybe you might say, okay, I'm gonna go with this. Maybe some of you already are figuring out what my sorting is as I separate these into piles. All right, so these are now my 2 piles. And if you look closely, you'll see that this pile are organisms that have 4 limbs, and these are organisms that do not have 4 limbs. So you have things like the jellyfish, which don't have any limbs, and then you have things like the spider, which have more than 4 limbs, or this stag beetle, I think it is, or this fish. Now, once they do that, you can tell them, okay, you have these 2 piles. Now what I want you to do is in this pile of all the organisms that have 4 limbs, separate those into 2 separate categories. So maybe for this one, put that to the side. So now with my 4-limbed category, I have separated it into those 2 different piles. And you might look at it and say, okay, well, this is dinosaurs and these are not, but I was thinking more reptiles, which all of the reptiles happen to be dinosaurs here, and these are not. So now I've even more divided up my categories. And so basically I am sorting things by similar characteristics. Maybe I can take this pile and separate it into something like this. And say, well, these are reptiles that have smooth bodies and these are reptiles that have rough bodies or something sticking up on their body. So that then would be another physical feature that could further classify or categorize these types of organisms. And then you go back to the other piles and you do the same. Maybe your kids are not that aware of different physical features of organisms. Fine. Here's another way. I'm going to separate this out. You can have them do this many, many different times. So there we go. I've separated them. These are the blue organisms and these are the ones that have no blue on them at all. Okay? So as a teacher, I find that doing something like this, where the students physically get to interact with something, okay, it is a small little dinosaur or jellyfish or whatever, but it's something fun for them. Even I do this with students that are like 12 or 13 years old because they really get into it. They like having something to do. Just sitting in a classroom and writing is pretty boring. If I'm writing, oh, the 5 kingdoms are this, and these are the physical characteristics that describe bacteria and describe animals and describe plants, that will come, but engage them in the activity first. So I like to use this as an intro activity to classification. So they get the idea first and then they are easily able to do the rest when I give them a photo of something. Like, let's say I give them this and they already know about animals and they already know about arthropods, and they already know about arachnids. Now they can take this and classify it according to the proper scientific terms, because they've already engaged with sorting organisms in this kind of fun way. Now, this is not an activity that you have to spend a whole lot of money on. Okay, maybe you are unable to get some resources like these. That's fine. If you're in a school that has some younger students, some early, maybe kindergarten, first grade, they have toys. Just go to the classroom and talk to the teacher and just say, for this lesson, can I borrow the toy box, or can I borrow a bunch of toys and I'll return them, and have the students do that. If you're a homeschooler and their toy box is clean, great. Guess what? They can help you sort the laundry. How can we separate the trousers or the pants from the shirts? You know, what kind of piles can we make? And then not only are you teaching them classification, but you're getting your laundry done at the same time. So hey, I think that's an ideal situation for any mom who is homeschooling kids, or dad for that matter. So hope this activity has given you some ideas and has made you see that teaching science isn't quite so dry as maybe you might have been once led to believe, but it can be interesting, and it can be fun, and it can be engaging for the students. So just as a reminder, if you like this channel, please do subscribe. I will be posting a video every week, usually on Monday. That is a quick glimpse into easy and simple ways to engage your students or your children in science concepts.